Title: How One Church Bent a $170 million Expressway. Intro. If you've ever driven on one of Chicago's busiest highways, you've seen this: a crazy, totally unexpected curve. It looks like a massive mistake, like an engineer messed up on a road that's supposed to be a perfect straight line. But it's not a mistake. This bend is literally a scar from a huge battle fought decades ago. A battle where a community stood up to a force that seemed unstoppable. This is the insane story of how one small church went to war with a $170 million expressway. And won. Section 1. The Age of Asphalt. To understand this fight, you have to go back to after World War II. America was on top of the world. The economy was booming. People were moving to the suburbs, and the car was everything. This was the beginning of the interstate highway era. Cities everywhere were being totally redesigned for cars. Old neighborhoods? They were just obstacles. Traffic? Just a problem you could solve by pouring enough concrete. And this was especially true in Chicago. Chicago was a beast, a powerhouse city that was literally choking on its own traffic. So they came up with a monster plan, a massive web of expressways. The biggest project of them all was the Northwest Expressway. This thing was almost 18 miles long, a superhighway meant to connect downtown to the new O'Hare Airport and the suburbs. It had $170 million in funding, which was an absolutely insane amount of money. It was supposed to be a perfectly straight line, a concrete river shooting Chicago into the future. The bulldozers were literally ready to clear anything in their way. But they didn't realize one thing was standing in their path: history. Section 2. The Mother Church. Way before anyone even dreamed of a highway, this neighborhood, Pulaski Park, was a super tight-knit community. And the heart of it all was St. Stanislaus Kostka Church. It was founded by Polish immigrants way back in 1867. By the 1950s, it wasn't just a church. It was called the Mother Church for all of Polish-American Chicago. For generations, this was the center of life for thousands of families. They were baptized here, married here, and said goodbye to their loved ones here. Their kids went to school here. At one point, it was the biggest parish in the entire United States, with an incredible 40,000 members. This wasn't just a building on a planner's map. It was the actual soul of the community. It was home. Section 3. The Collision Course. And then the city dropped a bombshell. The plans for the Northwest Expressway were released, and the community was horrified. The thick, straight line on the map cut directly through their entire world. See, first plan would have destroyed the homes of 400 families and basically stranded the church on an island. But another plan was even crazier. It showed the highway plowing literally through the church, wiping it off the map forever. To a city planner, it made sense. The church was just in the way. But to the people who went there, it was the end of their world. This unstoppable force of progress was on a collision course with their faith and their history. It looked like a fight they had absolutely no chance of winning. Section 4. The fight begins. At first, the neighborhood was in shock. Then they got angry. And then they decided to fight back. This was their home, and they were not going to let it be paved over. They started organizing, holding meetings in the exact church basement that was about to be demolished. They got thousands and thousands of petition signatures. It was the ultimate David versus Goliath. On one side, you had the city, the county, and the state government with all their money and power. On the other side, you just had a bunch of regular people, their pastor, and a few local politicians who knew that losing this church would be a disaster for Chicago. They protested, wrote letters, and yelled at any politician who would listen. They argued you weren't just destroying a building, you were destroying a community's heart. But nobody seemed to be listening. The expressway was just too big and too powerful. But the engineers made one huge miscalculation. They totally underestimated the people they were trying to get rid of. And they had no idea about one man who understood exactly how to beat them. Section 5. The Unlikely Hero. And that's when this guy, State Representative Bernard Prusinski, enters the story. And get this, he wasn't just a politician, he was a civil engineer. He represented the people whose homes were about to be destroyed, and he understood the technical blueprints better than almost anyone. He knew they couldn't stop the highway, so he decided to bend it. Prusinski looked at the blueprints, not for a fight, but for a crazy solution. And he found it. The Chicago and Northwestern Railroad tracks that ran right next to the proposed highway. That was the key. His plan was so simple it was genius. He said, "What if we just move the railroad tracks over a few hundred yards? There's a bunch of empty land right there. Then we can build the expressway, where the tracks used to be, following the curve. It would swerve perfectly around St. Stanislaus Kostka and all the homes." He found a way for everyone to win. Section 6. The Victory. Prusinski's plan was unbelievably smart. It wasn't an emotional plea, it was a legitimate, engineered alternative that he brought to the city and state. Now, the huge political power of the Polish community had a real plan to support. And here's a crazy fact. Years later, people nicknamed the bend the Rostenkowski Curve, after a super-powerful congressman named Dan Rostenkowski. But the credit really belongs to Prusinski. Rostenkowski himself even told a newspaper in 1992 that he wasn't the one who saved the church. In the end, the city couldn't argue with the logic. They actually adopted Prusinski's plan. The church was saved. But here is the absolute best part. Not only did this plan save a historic church and hundreds of homes, but it also saved the taxpayers money. His brilliant idea was actually cheaper than the original plan, saving an estimated $6 to $8 million. They didn't just save their past, their fight made the future even better. Section 7. The Legacy Etched in Concrete. The Northwest Expressway, which was later renamed the John F. Kennedy Expressway, opened in 1960. It was a massive success, with crazy new features for the time like reversible lanes and the CTA Blue Line train running right down the middle. It completely transformed Chicago. But it will always have that one permanent, gentle bend. Today, hundreds of thousands of drivers speed past St. Stanislaus Kostka every single day. And most of them have no idea. The highway is just feet from the church walls because a community of people refused to let it get any closer. That curve isn't a mistake. It's a giant trophy for a political and social victory. It's a monument that proves a city isn't just roads and buildings. It's made of people and their stories. As historian Peter Alter said, that curve is a perfect example of Chicago's history of immigration and politics. CTA. These insane stories are literally hidden all over our cities, right in front of us. That weird bend in the highway, that random park, that old building that looks totally out of place. They all have a secret story. I want to know about your city. Let me know in the comments if there are any places that were saved by people fighting back. And if you want more videos about the crazy hidden history all around us, you know what to do. Subscribe. Conclusion. The Kennedy Expressway was built to be a monument to the future, all about speed and progress. But the curve that everyone sees is a monument to the past. It proves that our heritage isn't just some obstacle you can bulldoze, and it proves that the most powerful thing in a city isn't always concrete and steel. Sometimes it's just the people who call that city home. And if they stand together, they can be powerful enough to literally bend a $170 million expressway.